Yeah.
All right, guys, here we go. Another episode of Flying High with the Birds, the Philadelphia Eagles. It is January 26th, 2021. With me today is Jimmy Vellucci.
What's going on, guys? How have you been?
Pretty good. Will Sealy.
How you doing? How you doing? Another day in Eagles talk.
And Vahe, the Armenian Hammer.
Hi, guys.
And my name is Armin. Well, the news today or this week is the hiring of Nick Sirianni, the former Indianapolis Colts offensive coordinator, as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And we do have somewhat of a semblance of a coaching staff that he has selected, and it seems like it is really Sirianni's staff. I'll just go into the people real quick. Nick Sirianni, the head coach now. Defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive back coach at Indianapolis. Shane Steichen, who will be the offensive coordinator, who was the offensive coordinator for the San Diego Chargers. Kevin Patullo, who was going to be the pass game coordinator, and he was also with Indianapolis. Tracy Rocker, who was a standout defensive lineman at Auburn back in the day, and he only had a cup of coffee in the NFL with the Washington Redskins, and then he got hurt and he never really came back. Who I think will be a very good defensive line coach. And coming back is Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach. Leaving is Deuce Staley, who left for better pastures. Justin Peel, the tight ends coach, and John Dorsey. Even though he's not he really wasn't a coach, but he was a consultant to the general manager. He is now the general manager of the Detroit Lions. Let's start off with Deuce Staley real quick. Well, I know that you really had really good feelings about him being here and the coach he was with the running backs. Do you think he got a raw deal here, and do you think he'll progress real well with Detroit?
I think he's going to do well in Detroit. I think the real problem with Deuce is he doesn't have that offensive coordinator role or name tag basically to his resume. And I mean, I think he wants to be a head coach somewhere one day, but until he gets that offensive coordinator role, I don't see it really, him moving into that role. Even though he's going to Detroit, he's basically having the same exact title, assistant head coach and running backs coach. I feel like he would have been a good head coach here, but the problem is no one has ever seen him, make play calls. Like, I think there was too much of a mystery of what Deuce could have been. I mean, he's a great leader. He's a great running backs coach. That's really all I can say about him. And I haven't ever seen anywhere in the NFL where a running backs coach has made that jump to a head coaching role. So I mean, it's really hard to tell. I think he's got to try to find somewhere to be an offensive coordinator, which is kind of weird, though, because last year they said there was a report that said that he turned down the offensive coordinator role for the Eagles because he wouldn't be calling plays. And I just wonder if he did take that role, like maybe would that have pushed him over the edge to being the head coach here? I don't know.
Yeah, I had heard that too. And I think that was that during Peterson's era.
Yeah, it was supposed to be last year, and he apparently turned it down because
Right.
he wasn't going to be calling plays, and that's when they gave it over to the other guy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But honestly, I feel really bad for him. I just the way I looked at it was, I think when they interviewed him, I think my opinion was that Lurie was really looking for somebody that had a plan, and I think immediately that Peterson, when he interviewed Peterson first, I think he realized that he didn't have a plan. I think that was a big part of it. And then obviously there was the talk that he really wasn't happy with who his staff was going to be. And I think that really led more so to his dismissal.
Yeah, I get the whole, aspect of everybody, from Philly is like, oh, we love Deuce. He played here, he coached here, he was good here, and the players like him. Yeah, let's have him as our head coach. But I mean, look around the league. I mean, nobody is, giving Deuce Daly a head coaching interview. I mean, it's just not something that he's ready for, or at least that he's shown that he's ready for. I mean, we don't really know exactly what he's good at besides as a running back coach. We don't know how he game plans during the week. We've never seen him call plays. I mean, he needs to find that role to kind of move him up in the, to find that head coaching job. He needs to, build his resume a little more, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. And he's still relatively young. Jimmy, obviously there was all this talk that Josh McDaniels was going to be the head coach. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Sirianni comes and he gets the job. He happens to be in Florida on vacation, probably a stone's throw away from where Laurie was living and giving these interviews at the time. They offer him the job like almost within a day. Why Sirianni over Josh McDaniels in your view?
I think good old Frank Reich made the phone call. I think he made the phone call to Jeffrey Lurie and told him what he had over there in him and asked him what he was thinking about hiring McDaniels. Supposedly he was on vacation, like you said, with his family, right?
Yeah, in Florida.
He didn't even have a suit or anything. So
Right.
They said he just hopped on a Zoom call and the Eagles liked what he was saying, and he's their guy. At first, I was kind of skeptical about it, but I'm kind of on board with it now. I'm a fan of it. They let him pick his staff, which was impressed me. It seems like everybody's relatively young on that staff too. What stands out to me, what could be an issue, is there's no veteran coach for experience on that, as a coordinator.
Well,
I think that,
yeah.
but I'm okay with that. It's pretty obvious the Eagles are going to go and rebuild, and they're going to go with the young guys. And the only thing that worries me is how the locker room's going to, receive everything. What scares me is the whole Wentz situation. It seems like he was the one who got Peterson fired, and I don't know if it's going to go over. He's got to win the locker room back, basically. I think that's going to be tough with a new coaching staff.
If you win games, that's going
Yeah,
to change the mentality of the locker room, Jimmy.
That's true, but are they going to? Like, what are the expectations for next year? Like they're low they're low for me, which is okay. I want to get to know the coaching staff this year. That's like my main goal, and to figure out if we have a quarterback.
That's a very good point. Vahe, I know you did some research on this guy. Tell me what you got.
So I believe basically that either Frank Reich called Jeffrey Lurie or vice versa, but that's the connection for this guy. And I was doing some research on him and I see what's so special about him. And it's apparently he likes the 12 personnel offensive game plan, 2 tight ends with 1 running back. And there was a YouTube video online. He was like praising that play where in the Super Bowl where Nick Foles dropped back and threw the ball to Zach Ertz for a touchdown. And he was marveling about that play. It was so good, and it was like a 12 personnel play. So I think he thinks almost the same way offensively as Peterson does. The difference between this guy and Peterson is that this guy wants to be in charge. And I think that's one thing that probably Jeffrey Lurie liked about this guy, that he's coming in and said, I want to be in charge and I want to bring my own people. When I was doing my research about this guy and looked back at Peterson, apparently Peterson is not really too big on coaching, even though he wants to be a head coach, but he doesn't have the skill sets to be a head coach. He's more comfortable just calling offensive, the game during the day. game day. And then other than that, he's not really big on it. And he got into a collision course with Jeffrey Lurie when he made it personal. When Jeffrey Lurie asked him to do something, he felt that basically Jeffrey Lurie is interfering in his work, what he's supposed to do. And he just does the opposite of Jeffrey Lurie, what he asked him to do. In the process, he got fired. And what he was trying to do is basically wasn't the right way of approaching the boss, right? You have to listen to what the guy is saying. Apparently, another thing I find out about is that when they fired Chip Kelly and they brought Doc Peterson in, he kept 6 to 7 of the coaches that were left over from Kelly. He didn't even bother to bring in his own people because apparently he doesn't feel comfortable doing that. So he's not really into nurturing or putting the right people in the right spot. And I think probably that was one of the reasons that Jeffrey Lurie eventually fired him, because he didn't have a plan, right? But with this guy, it seems that he has a plan. He is more like a take charge type of a person. Now, whether he's going to be successful as a head coach, that's a completely different ballgame. Because in theory, and this goes back to Deuce Staley too, is that just because you're successful in one thing doesn't make you successful in something else. And probably that goes back with Deuce Staley. Maybe Jeffrey Lurie realized that basically Deuce Staley was a good player. He's a good guy. He's a good communicator with the players, but maybe he's not a head coaching material. And, at the end of the day, just because you do one thing good doesn't mean that you can do something else as good as you were doing something, what you were doing before. And maybe that's why he didn't get the job.
It's a good point. Well, evidenced by the fact that Peterson hasn't even sniffed a head coaching interview. At this point, you would have figured, like Andy Reid, when he got fired, he was hired by the Chiefs within a week. I think, not even a week.
I think it was like 2
day.
days.
I think it was a day.
Yeah, he went and he was supposed to go to Arizona. He went to Kansas City for an interview, and then he was supposed to go to Arizona, and he didn't even leave Kansas City.
Yeah, Vahe, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think he was just a play caller. And the funny thing was that there's talk that he was about to interview, or he interviewed with Seattle to be their play caller. And I think that's all he wants to do. But now there's a good chance that he may take the year off and then decide what he's going to do. I think he's a good coach. He's not a head coach.
That's correct.
A head coach to me is somebody that not only teaches is a teacher to his players, but also his coaches. And I don't think that we're not the reporters and we're not there every day, but I just feel like he was not there nurturing his coaches. I think he was more concerned about being a play caller on the offensive side of the ball. So
It's also probably why you saw that he never ever brought anybody in to make the team better, like coaching wise. He always would just promote within because he didn't really, I don't know if he didn't care or he wasn't focused on that.
well, I know he brought in 2 consultants for the quarterback consultants. I think
But I think that was Jeffrey Lurie mostly telling him he had to.
That's very possible. Yeah, that's very possible. I agree. So, I don't know.
That's why I was saying that in the beginning of the broadcast that initially I had a different perspective, but once I finished my research on this thing, now I see where Jeffrey Lurie is coming from as far as firing Peterson, because at the end he realized that this guy doesn't have a plan. He's just being stubborn about individuals just to make a point. And that's not the way you can run a business, especially the owner's telling you this is not working and you're trying to be stubborn about it. Somebody got to go, and it's not the owner's going to go. You got to go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But I feel like I don't think it was, in my opinion, a matter of Sirianni just like hitting a home run on the interview. I think that he had a plan, and he probably talked a lot about like some of their offensive concepts and things like that. I know if you look at a lot of Indianapolis, Indy's plays, a lot of them were like mesh routes. So plays that were really designed for the quarterback to look straight ahead of him, like crossing routes and variations off the crossing routes, and having a different formations like a 3-to-1 or doubles, and really mixing it up. And that you're right, they played a lot of they went with a lot of 12 personnel, which was, I think they did 12 personnel. They were fifth, I think, in 12 personnel last year, Indianapolis. But the Eagles were like first in 12 personnel the last 2 years, which begs the question of, personnel is how many running backs and how many tight ends? Well, the second number is the tight ends. Leads us to Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz would be great in this system. If they go with this concept of this offensive concept with this scheme, Will, do you think that they're going to be interested in maybe keeping guys around like Ertz and Deshaun Jackson?
Yeah, I think they probably would. I mean, those two guys you named right there would be great fits. I don't know if Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy for more than a game though, so I don't know if it's a good decision. Zach Ertz though, I'm sure he would love to come here at the right price or stay here at the right price. I don't see that as a bad idea.
I think if Jackson comes back at a much reduced rate, they'll sign him for another year. I just
It's
got
got to
that
be
feeling.
it's got to be the bare minimum. Because
Better minimum, yeah.
yeah,
I agree.
he what's he played? 3 games in the last 2 years for us?
Something like
Well,
that.
then you load it with incentives. So
Yeah, and that
so if he
doesn't go
gets hurt,
against the
that's
cap
on
either.
him.
So
And who else is really going to take him at this point? So he really doesn't have much option when you really think about it. So,
I'm sure Andy Reid will find a way to take him.
Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely. But getting back to the staff as coordinators, all his coordinators are in their 30s, and it seems like they're all real hard workers, which gives the possibility here that this group has the potential to be around for a long, long time. And I know that, guys get different head coaching positions and all down the road, but I kind of like the way they're going here. I don't like the guy that's been in the league for a lot of years. I just really feel like all these guys are going to be in the building early in the morning till late at night, and they all know each other real well. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of energy with what they're going to do here. And I just feel like it was a much better move getting him instead of Josh McDaniels. I think McDaniels might have had success right away, but I just think that he would probably wear out his welcome here in Philadelphia after a year or two. And I think Lurie may have seen that, was told that before he interviewed Sirianni. So let's go to Wentz real quick, because this is going to be the major story. Jimmy, did you ever hear of, we got to fix our quarterback? I never heard that in all the years. What does that mean? Can he be fixed? Can this guy fix him? Is he going to be on this team next year?
I think he needs. I'm starting to get fired up because he hasn't spoken, 51 days now since the Green Bay game. He hasn't even come out, he needs to hire a good PR person, because he hasn't even come out and endorsed the head coach. Like, he could have just put something on Twitter or whatever, congrats to the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. We haven't heard a word from him, which I'm not even sure if he wants to be here anymore. I don't even know if you can make it work. He's going to have a bullseye on him from the fans. He's going to have to win guys over back in the locker room again. I just think it's going to be a big issue. It's like a bomb waiting to go off. They can say, they're going to have an open competition in camp, but if the players really know who outperforms who in camp. I just think that Lurie and Roseman want to go with Wentz because of the contract, which, is that right or wrong? I don't know. And then the other thing is, does Wentz really want to be here? He hasn't said a word. He's supposed to be the face of the franchise.
Those
are red flags for me. Like, I just really started thinking about this the past couple of days. It's just, you haven't heard anything from the guy. And I don't know if he's, he's hurt, he's got hurt feelings because of everything that happened, but, screw that. You got to be a man. Go work at your game. You should be working on your game instead of, what was he doing? Shooting ducks the other day or something they said. There was a video of him and his brothers. They were hunting geese or something. Like, come on, you're supposed to be the core quarterback. I just have a lot of questions about Wentz. I don't even know if he's here.
As a person.
I don't even know if he's here. Like, I don't even know if I want him here.
I don't think anybody wants him here.
Like,
Well, how about the?
I want him
Yeah.
here.
Like, I was with you before. I supported him. I wanted things to work out. Now, like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know.
Come on, man. Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson have killed this organization and have killed our quarterback, our top round draft pick quarterback. They have ruined him.
Yeah, I agree.
But I gotta say this. I gotta say this.
Too.
Yeah, I gotta say this about Peterson though. I remember when they won the Super Bowl, and there was the parade, and then Peterson got up and said a few words. I remember looking at him and thinking, "How did he do this?" I still wasn't convinced.
I remember talking to you on the phone about that. I do.
I really thought to myself, is this guy like the luckiest guy in the world? Because he real nice guy, but he just didn't look like I kept thinking about that article that
Vince Lombardi wrote.
No, Mike Lombardi wrote that he had no more, he didn't have any more knowledge of being a head coach than most people that he knows. So yeah, I agree 100%. Now going back to Wentz, Mike Garafolo from I don't know, one of those stations. I don't know what station it is. He said that it was reported that Wentz has a problem with more than just Peterson. So it's not just Peterson. Like, who else could it be? Was it Press Taylor, who's no longer with the organization? Is it certain players? Is it players that he felt like didn't block for him? Vahe, I mean, help me out on this here. I mean, do you think he's harassment?
We discussed this outside on a driveway several times. I used to like Wentz a lot as a player, but once I found out about him as a person, I don't think he's a good person. It just basically is a type of a person, I wouldn't say North Dakota or whatever, but it doesn't fit to what Philly is. And then rubs the people the wrong way. And now that the more he acts this way, the more he's going to piss people off. Because one thing about Philadelphia is basically that if you give 100%, they support you. But you start acting like this and your true colors coming out, it's going to be hard for you to come back and be designated, starting quarterback and suck again, And that's just not saying anything about what, on a personal level, what kind of a person he is. But his true colors coming out, and it's going to be really hard for him to be back as a starting quarterback, especially if he doesn't play well and Jalen Hurts sitting on the bench. It's going to create a big problem for Philadelphia, not among the fans, among the players too. And that's basically something that they have to really address it before it goes blow up in their face.
Yep, I agree 100% with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can't possibly see Wentz being here next year. Like I said in one of I think it might have been the last podcast, normally a quarterback, the starting quarterback, gets his receivers together off season to go to Arizona or something, and they're going to work for a week or two together on who's going to do it this year? Is Wentz going to do you think Wentz is going to grab all his receivers and go to like Florida with them all in the winter and work on patterns? I see Hurts doing that. I think Hurts is working at his game, and I think he's working very hard to be the best player he can be. Not only just a good player, but I think that he's got the smarts. He's quicker than Wentz is. He gets out of the pocket a lot better than he does, and he's much stronger too. I think that the upside is absolutely more on Jalen Hurts, but the longer, in my opinion, that Wentz stays on this team, the less he has trade value going to another team. but I still think that there's somebody out there that can take him. And there are teams out there that really need a starting quarterback, and teams that probably feel like they can fix Carson Wentz.
I feel like
biggest
you guys
problem-
have. I feel like you guys have all lost your mind. There's no way we're getting rid of Carson Wentz. If we're getting rid of anybody, it has to be Jalen Hurts. The guy, the guy had like a 40-something QBR the last like 2 weeks. Have we like all forgot how good Carson Wentz was? Like he had one bad year under Doug Peterson, who is not in the league anymore, can't get a head coaching offer anywhere, can't even get an interview. Come on, I'm not putting this on Carson Wentz. I'm gonna let him have one bad year. He'll be back.
Will, there is no way that Jalen Hurts is not on this team next year. There is no way.
He might be, but he's gonna be sitting the bench.
I think that he's got a real edge up to try to get that job. And I think that Sirianni is going to do whatever he can to make him, to change him. And the word that I heard in the talk shows was that when they interviewed all the head coaches, they told whoever the coach was going to be that it's purely going to be the coach's decision as to who the starting quarterback's going to be. But they want to make it known that they really do believe in Carson Wentz. So they want them to work as hard as possible to get him turned around. So, but as far as all this stuff going on and all the drama, I can't see him here. And to be honest with you, I just can't see him really being a good player anywhere else at this point.
Now, if you look around the league and all these teams that are like possibly moving on from the quarterbacks, like the Rams and Houston and possibly Green Bay
And Detroit too.
and Detroit, I mean, honestly, you have a better chance at moving Jalen Hurts. He doesn't have money that goes with him, and he's young. He had, 1 or 2 good games.
I just think back to the whole Wentz thing. I just don't think the guys in the locker room have respect for him. I don't think he has the respect for him, and that's a huge thing. When you're the face of the team, you have to have the respect of everybody in that room, and I don't think he has it.
If he starts going out there and performing like he did before, that'll flip right away. Come on,
well,
it will.
I know
remember
Wentz.
the Super Bowl year. Remember the Super Bowl year? He won so many games for them. And yet everybody was, liking Nick Foles. They were building shrines for him because the players, for some reason, connected better with Nick Foles than with Carson Wentz, even though Carson Wentz won the majority of the games for them.
But you've already seen that he can win. I mean, I don't care really what kind of person he is. If he can win and he's going to perform on Sundays, that's the kind of guy I want. I understand that, the team's got to be behind him. If he's winning and he's out there being a leader like he was in 2017, he's got to be the guy here.
Yeah, that's the issue. I don't know whether he's type of let's take Brady, for example. He could have like personality issues, but the guy is so good that everybody's willing to overlook that. I don't think Carson Wentz is that kind of a person. And I think he's very petty too, very childish with his approach to things. And it's too much to overcome. First, he has to grow up before he asks people to buy into what he's selling. And I think that's the first thing. The fact that basically he was trying to undermine Peterson, regardless, just because, he didn't like the plays or whatever, that tells you something that the guy is not really, grown up. So, we can say about Tom Brady, maybe he didn't like Belichick, but he stuck with him and he won Super Bowls and he moved on to Tampa, right? So even if you don't like the coach, right? But it's important for you to demonstrate leadership by doing what he's asking you to do, not trying to undermine him. And that basically sends the wrong message to the rest of the players, that somehow you feel that you're better and you're willing to undermine your head coach because you don't like what he's doing. That doesn't bring you respect.
I agree with that. 100%. I just think, we all know how bad Peterson has been this last year, and I'm petrified that we'll get rid of Carson Wentz and it'll be like the Chargers giving away Drew Brees. I mean, I need to see 1 year of him under another coach before I make any brass decision.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now let's get on to Sirianni real quick. They said that, he was a wide receiver in college at Mount Union. I think it's a Division III powerhouse. And he had a pretty good senior year, especially. I think he had like 80 receptions. I don't know if that was in his career or his last year, but he was a very disciplined route runner. And he had very good hands, great team guy, worked really hard at his craft. And they said he also was like a coach in the field. And after he graduated, he actually got a job as a grad assistant at Mount Union. And the story goes that when he was on, I think it was spring break, I'm not sure if it was his junior or senior year in college. He lives in Jamestown, New York, which is, I think, about 60 miles south of Buffalo. So he's kind of in between Buffalo and Pittsburgh. He was working out at a YMCA and he ran into Todd Haley, who at the time, I believe, was the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. And Haley was there on a vacation at a lake that's right off of outside of Jamestown. And apparently Haley was so impressed with their discussion that he eventually offered him a job in the NFL. So Todd Haley's the one that gave him a start, and he started out as a quality control guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. But what's interesting here about Sirianni is, excuse me, he was never fired from any job. So if a head coach got fired from a job, he stayed every single time. And that's the same for basically all the other coordinators that he brought on board with him. They all stayed. So that tells me that these guys work really, really hard at what they do. So Jimmy, I'm going to start with you. Apparently his main focus is right now the receivers. And I think he's worried about the discipline routes that especially these young receivers can run. And also what kind of receivers his running backs will be. Let's go into the running back situation. He absolutely is going to need a more of a stable of running backs here, because when he had Indianapolis last year, he had Jonathan Taylor that had the last 7 games of the year had a plethora of 100-yard games. And he also had Nyheim Hines, who was the second running back, who, when they said when the receiver catches the ball out of the backfield, the guy that got the most yards per catch was Nyheim Hines. He was number 1. Like, what do you think they're going to do as far as running back? I mean, they need more than just Sanders. Don't you agree?
That's another thing they have to address. I mean, who do we have? Sanders and Boston Scott, right? That's all we really have. I mean, Sanders is a stud, I think. I'm a huge fan of Sanders.
But he gets hurt.
No, you're right. So I didn't even look. I don't even know who's really out there. Do we know off the top of our head for running backs? Or
well, their running backs are apparently interchangeable, and they're not. It's not normally running backs don't get drafted in the first round because their shelf life isn't real long.
I think Marlon Mack is actually going to be a free agent this year, and he was in Indianapolis.
Somebody like him would be a nice compliment with Sanders, in my opinion.
Marlon Mack?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. You know, it's like the old running backs we had with Andy Reid. But we had that 3-headed monster the one year. Who was it? It was who was it? It was Westbrook, Buckholder, and who was it? Deuce, the other one?
No, Deuce. It was Deuce, Westbrook, and
Buckholder, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. That was the 3-headed monster.
3-headed monster. Even look when we won the Super Bowl running backs, right? You need,
They had Blunt, yeah.
Ajayi.
Right. So yeah,
Clement played well. You need running backs I know they have a short shelf life, but they have to be productive for you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know if you did much research on these coordinators.
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
I like to, did you do it on both Gannon and Steichen?
Gannon, I did more on Shane Steichen.
I want to hear about him.
Well, it's not, the report I got about him is not really very glowing report. They're saying that he was the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, and everybody was scratching their head saying, what the hell this guy is doing? And so I guess everybody's giving Sirianni the benefit of the doubt that these are his guys because he knew them before and he feels comfortable with them. But Shane is not really coming with the glowing, reviews.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you got Sirianni, who's never did any play calling, but maybe Sirianni is planning on doing the play calling and just getting whatever feedback he can from Steichen. So I don't know. I don't know what you think, Will.
What I've heard is, he's excellent apparently during the week and game planning and everything, but then on Sundays actually calling the plays, he's just awful. I've heard he blew a couple I don't know if he blew a couple games, but there was a couple times in the beginning of their season last year where he would run the ball when there was only like 20 something seconds left and they didn't even have a timeout. So they missed out on kicking a field goal at the end of a half or end of a game. I think it was 2 times last year this happened. And a lot of, like from what I'm reading, a lot of the fans there were actually excited for him to leave. So that's never really a good thing. But I have heard that he is good during the week and up to the game. Hopefully he's not calling the plays here.
Well, that's what Sirianni's strength was. He's the one that actually formulated the game plan and the scripted first 15 plays with Frank Reich, and then Reich actually called the plays. I'm sure that Sirianni right now feels that he's ready to call the plays, and that's what's going to happen. So I agree with what you're saying, Vahe, with this guy Steichen, but I think maybe with Sirianni, they could really, they between the two of them, I think they may have a good thing here, calling plays, because they both are very bright minds.
Because of Frank Reich. I mean, that's one thing about Jeffrey Lurie. For some reason, for him, friendship plays a big role. And Peterson got the job because Andy Reid vouched for him, even though he was coaching high school football. But he got an NFL job because Andy Reid said he's the man. And the same thing with this guy. Probably Frank Reich spoke highly of him, and then the guy got a head coaching job. Whether he can perform or not, that's a different story. But I want to add one more thing. You just said about the preparation. If you remember when they hired Andy Reid, one thing that Jeffrey Lurie said he was very impressed. Andy Reid came in with a like 5-inch thick book and detailed every position, every play. And that's what really impressed him the more. The guy was so organized. And maybe the same thing with Sirianni. This guy is very organized. And Jeffrey Lurie
blew him away.
Yeah, people who are organized. I mean, he likes those kind of things. He doesn't.
But I think they need a coach like that. Like at first, I thought they needed a disciplinarian, and the more I had a chance to think about it, I figured, I think it's better to have a guy that has a plan. And this guy, they say has a plan, and they apparently everybody he gets along with everybody. Everybody. He's just a really friendly guy, and he's a lot of energy, and he's very positive. And I think that you need a positive influence as a coach, in addition to being a teacher. But they say that he worked tirelessly with the wide receivers and for their preparation for the games. And I do remember there was the day after one of the games that the Eagles lost, and they were talking about the wide receivers to Peterson, and Peterson did mention about, well, like, why isn't Fulgham getting more chances, like, all of a sudden? He didn't say Fulgham, but he said, listen, a lot of these wide receivers really need to learn how to run disciplined routes in practice. So he gave away something there. These guys are not running disciplined routes. There was a lot of complaints about Fulgham not running disciplined routes. He had good hands when the ball came to him, but his route, the way he ran his routes was not concise. So I think that I get this feeling that Sirianni is going to be a major plus for all these wide receivers. And if he can get these guys to be more disciplined, he may not need any more wide receivers. Focus on the other positions. I don't know how you feel about that.
What's that? Did you ask me?
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about like getting more wide receivers. I think he's happy with who he has.
I don't think we need. See, that's Are you going to waste another pick on a receiver? I mean, I know Devontae Smith is right there, but
He won't be around. He's
I
you
going to
don't
go
think
to
he's going to be?
Miami.
You don't think he's going to be? You think he's going to go 3 to Miami?
Yeah, Miami's going to take him.
I don't- Do you think with that body he can be successful in the NFL?
Yeah, right. He said he's not even going to weigh in at the combine because he's what's he like 160 or something?
Yeah, but whatever team grabs him, they're going to make him bigger and stronger. The guy's an absolute talent. He's a beast of a wide receiver. I mean, look at Jackson. Look, I mean, what's the difference in size between him and Deshaun Jackson? So, you know, that's the way I feel about that whole thing. So, but I just feel like I think we have to give them a chance. I kind of like where they're going here. It's obvious that Lurie did not pick this staff. I think, you know, this has Sirianni's earmarks all over it because they're all guys that he's been with, that he's coached with. And I think for what he had to work with, I think everything was a good selection for him. The only thing I was worried about is I think he's going to need help, especially his first year. So it would have been good to have like a wise old Al in there, maybe as his offensive coordinator or quarterback coach or something. But they're all young guys, and that tells me that maybe he's got the confidence to, you know, to really go on and be with this team for many, many years. So
That's what we need, stability. We need someone who's going to take charge or run the organization. I mean, say what you want about Andy Reid for those 15 years, but everybody knew he was the man in charge and he called all the shots.
yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think we need. In my opinion, your head coach should be running the whole organization.
No, I agree. This is off the beaten track a little bit, but I guess Vahe, what do you think about Jeff Stoutland coming back?
I mean, offensive line, they had like 15 people, like a turnstile, and then still trying to manage. I don't know. I mean,
I love him.
you do?
I think that was the best. I mean, he was at Alabama back in the day, and he was a great offensive line coach at Alabama. And what he had to work with was unbelievable. What he's did with that team, and look at how like he's gotten a lot of these guys to be better players.
I think the biggest thing is, I mean, if you look at Jordan Mailata, if you take Stoutland out, him trying to learn under another offensive line coach might hurt his growth. So I think that might be one of the most important things to keep him in place, to keep progressing him.
Yeah, they got a tackle out of ninth round or 7th round or 8th round. What was it?
And he was a rugby player.
Yeah.
He was. I think he would be like a fish out of water if Stoutland wasn't there. And that, you know, brings us to Kelsey. I mean, I think that it was huge for Kelsey that Stoutland is back because, you know, I think Kelsey adored him.
Oh yeah, Kelsey would be retiring if there was another offensive line coach.
I agree 100%, and that should be a position of need for Sirianni down the road because how many more years? He's going to be 33 years old next year. So
he might have another year in him. That's it.
Yep.
You might be right, but then again, he doesn't talk much, so it's very possible that he might be here for another 2 or 3 years. But it's amazing. He's the only guy that played in every single game. He has by far the most snaps.
Yeah.
And he did it last year too. I mean, the guy's just unbelievable. Before we get off here, real quick, let's talk about who your picks are for the Super Bowl. Jimmy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm an Andy Reid fan and a Tom Brady fan, so I'm going to be happy either way. But the Chiefs look pretty unstoppable on Sunday. They look pretty unstoppable. So I might have to go with Kansas City, but I don't know how. At the same time, I don't know how you bet against Brady. I don't know.
He threw 3 picks up. He threw 3 picks in like what, 8 minutes?
Go back to that game real quick. What was LaFleur thinking at the end of that game when he came? Why did he go for it? he gave the ball back to Brady with 2 minutes left and basically said, here you go. Here's the game.
Well,
I
better
didn't
yet,
agree with that.
better
I didn't
yet,
agree
how
with
could
that.
they let them score with what, 10 seconds left in the
At the
half?
end of the, yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, they said Pettin's probably going to get fired because of that play.
It's very possible. Vahe, who do you think?
Oh, I want the Brady to win because that way only Nick Foles and Manning are the only two people who beat him. Just for,
But you think Tampa's got the guns to beat them?
I think so. I think the thing is that with the Kansas City, if you have a good defense, you can stifle them. And I think for some reason Brady, I know he threw 3 picks, but the guy, man, he's clutch. Unbelievable.
No, he is. And actually, 2 of his picks should not have been picks because he actually threw them up the last second, hoping that Evans was going to come down, and Evans wasn't even looking for the ball. So I think you're right about that. Will, who do you have?
I'll never go against Brady. Brady's my guy. I'm going Bucks.
All right. Well, I'll end it with this. I think Kansas City is going to win big. I think that they're going to torch that cover 2, and plus both safeties are hurting. One I think is out, and the other one has a bad shoulder. Jordan Whitehead. He's the one that caused the fumble near the end of the I think at the beginning of the second half. But both of their safeties are hurting, and I think that I think the game plan and the quarterback are just going to expose that defense. Even though Tampa has a very good defense, I just don't see Kansas City being stopped. So, but I would love to see Tampa win. I would love to see Brady win this game and then go out on a shield and just retire. Go out and have about 10 more kids.
That's what. Do you think does he retire if they win?
No.
Or does he come back?
No,
he's not
because I
retiring.
know Gronk already said he's coming back.
I did
Gronk's
see
coming
Gronk
back.
said he wanted to come back.
Yeah, and it's a shame because you could tell that Gronk lost a step. He's a shell of what he used to be. And I think he's really being used more as a decoy when he's in there. He only had the one big play, you know.
Another thing about Brady, what's amazing is it'll be 3 separate decades that he's played in the Super Bowl. How
amazing.
incredible is that? That's just
Yeah. And here's the crazier thing. This is going to be his 10th Super Bowl, right? He literally could have won all 9. I mean, the 2 Giants games he should have won. The Eagles game, he was having a tremendous second half. And if not for that fumble, I don't know how that game would have ended up. I mean, he literally could be 9-0 in the Super Bowl. He actually lost a game or 2 in the conference title game that they should have won. So he could have been to more than 10 when you think about it.
If he's so good, why did it take him nearly 20 years to win the NFC Championship?
right.
All right, you got me. You got me on that. I don't think that's ever gonna.
I got a question though. I got a question for us. We could talk about this next time we have our show. When Nick Sirianni has his first press conference, who is he going to say is a quarterback? What do you think he's going to say when somebody asks him who's your starting quarterback next year? What do you think?
I would say it's Wentz, but it's all open everything's open to competition. I wouldn't beat around the bush and say, because the players know. If he comes out and says it's Wentz and then Hurts outperforms Wentz in camp and he goes with Hurts, he'll have the respect of the players. It's if he says it's Wentz and Hurts outperforms him in camp and he goes with Wentz, that's when I think you're not going to have the respect of the guys. So I would say it's Wentz, but everything's open for competition.
What do you think,
Wentz
Vahe?
is still here.
Probably. Just, playing it safe and being politically correct. But probably that's what's going to say.
What I think is going to happen is Howie Roseman is going to be standing right next to him when that question is posed to him. He's going to push Sirianni out of the way and say, "We are a quarterback factory. All quarterbacks will play. Carson Wentz will not be on this team the beginning of next year." That's
Wow.
If you were to ask me tonight, I'm with you 100%. Like I don't know how it's just so much going on. He's got the bullseye on him. the whole maybe he got Peterson fired, you know, the whole locker room issue, not having respect to people, being mad at upper management. I just think it's a ticking time bomb of the new coaching staff, a rookie coach.
Mhm.
That's, you know, it could be a recipe for disaster.
You know, it would be a great way out of this if they're going to hold on to him and they realize that he's really not going to be that good. And then right at the end of training camp, before the first game, a star quarterback tears his knee and he's out for the year. And they're dying for a quarterback.
Oh,
They're going to take that big salary and eat it.
oh,
Wait a minute.
the whole
that
Teddy
happened with
Bridgewater
the other
injury.
guy. Remember? The Eagles had the other quarterback. What was the guy?
Bradford.
Bradford, yeah.
Bradford. That's what happened with the Vikings, didn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
That could happen. So they might be hoping that something like that happens. So it's like a quarterback carnival right now because guys are going with different teams and everything, and guys don't want to be with their present team.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Jalen-
there could be 5 or 6 quarterbacks on the move this offseason.
Jalen Hurts will be out of here in about a month.
no, I agree. So, but anyway, we'll wrap this up. We went on for about an hour, and another successful Zoom cast on Flying High with the Birds. This is Armin saying good night.
See you guys. Have a good
See you
night.
guys.
All right, take it easy.